Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. Rusty and Heather Bryant back with you. And we're going to answer another question that might be going on in your head at 2 o'clock in the morning. Probably because it's really close to 2 o'clock in the morning. Maybe that's why we're thinking about it. You people have no idea. It's been a long day. And it's really late in the night right now. But that's okay. We're here with you, and we're glad to be here. It's been a good day. Taught a class, did a little premarital counseling, and it's been fun. And so now we get to wrap up our day, which you'll probably listen to this early in the morning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when Heather said, "Can't you just wait and edit this in the morning?" I'm like, "No, people be listening to this."
I want to know who is listening to
5
this
o'clock in the morning?
5 a.m. in the morning.
I want to hear from you. If you're listening to this at 5 a.m., let us know. Or close to it. Okay, so last week we started... it's not a series because we don't do series. But we started talking about when there's been betrayal or any kind of trauma. Doesn't even have to be betrayal.
Or broken trust.
Broken trust.
Yep.
Or not even that. Just you had an argument. Whatever it is. You're laying there in bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. It could be 2:30. So we're not really strict on the 2 o'clock time. We're just throwing that out there. But these thoughts are running through your head and they're keeping you awake. And so last week we said the thought that kept coming to my head was, can we even make it? Are we going to make it past this? Yeah. Are we going to make it through this? And another big thought, and some of you, hey, thanks. You chimed in. You gave us some good questions that run through your head. Some of you need some sleep. But one of them was, how am I ever going to trust you again? How can I ever really trust you again? And on the flip side of that, I think you probably had questions about trust. It was probably, is he going to ever trust me again?
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant about me. I was like, no, I was pretty certain that I was trustworthy. But I just didn't know if you were going to be able to trust me again.
Yeah. So I laid in bed wondering, could I ever trust you again? And you laid in bed wondering, is he ever going to trust me again?
Absolutely.
And so... we get it. We understand exactly how you guys are feeling because we've been there. And those were the questions that would keep us up at night as well. And so I know that, well, for you, I mean, for me, I needed safety again because it wasn't that you had just lied to me or betrayed me. It was that all of my reality was gone, completely shattered. And so I didn't know what to believe anymore, what to trust anymore. It wasn't really just you. Yes, you were the cause of it, but it wasn't just about you because it was, what do I even believe anymore? What do I trust? Who can I trust? And I think there was there was definitely a battle going on of, can I even trust God anymore?
Oh, that's good.
Because he allowed this to happen to me. And so,
and if the person I trusted most in this world would do this, then like you said, the other people, like how can I even trust them?
Yep. So everything that I thought was real and true was gone in an instant, like disappeared. Yeah. And so I didn't know what was true anymore. And so I obviously had those doubts and those questions of, can I ever get back to a place? Because when something that deep has been broken, that the trust broken that deeply, it's easy to think that. And then, I mean, I would think from your perspective, you just had to feel pretty helpless.
Yeah.
Because you had to just be thinking, what can I do to ever prove that I...
Right. And you would say things like, I don't know what to believe anymore, and everything I ever believed was a lie. And it was horrible because I was like, no, there were so many things in our marriage that were true And there were so many things in our family that were true. And I wanted you to know that those things were true. But it was really hard for you to look at it and say, well, how do I know what was true and what wasn't? You know, like how. So anyway, that was very frustrating for me because I was like, this was just a little time, a little blip, you know, in our marriage that I was like, it was just this section that I wish you could really believe that everything before that was truth and then everything after my brokenness was true. But that doesn't just come because I said so.
Right.
Because you didn't trust my words.
Yeah. And the betrayal, like you said, it was this period of time. I mean, we started dating when I was in 10th grade and you were in 9th grade.
Right.
We had been together for over 20 years. And the betrayal happened in about a 3-month period. But there was no way that you could, or that I could even just say, oh, well, I just don't trust the 3-month Heather.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't trust you.
Right.
Anything about you. And yeah, for you, I think you could probably compartmentalize it and say, no, it was just this is, but for me, I was like, how do I know that?
That's right.
I mean, because you shook everything. And so if you've been around long enough, you've heard us say that it wasn't my job to learn to trust you again. It was your job to become trustworthy.
Yeah.
So you had a big role. Your role was you had to become a trustworthy person. But my role had to be, I had to be open to trusting you again.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how does that happen? And I could even say, you guys that are having those thoughts in the middle of the night, will I ever be able to trust again? Just to jump straight to the answer to that is that I now say I trust you more than anybody in the world, which is nothing short of a miracle.
That's right.
To be able to go through what we've been through and get there. But it also did not happen overnight. And it also didn't happen because I said, okay, I'm willing to trust you again. It was you becoming trustworthy over and over and over. Right. Little choices, little decisions, showing up consistently every single day. And over time, it began to build back that trust. I mean, probably people have heard the saying that trust is lost in buckets, but it's gained in drops.
Yeah.
And so it was just that one little drop here and there. And I mean, it was you waking up every day and saying, how am I going to be trustworthy today? No more secrets, no more surprises, and just being consistent. No hiding, no vague answers, you had to be vulnerable and you had to be real. And over time, those things became a pattern, and those patterns became what I hung on to be able to move closer and closer to trust. So the answer to people is that yes, you can trust again. But what if you're laying there and you're going, well, I want to trust again, and I'm open to it, but they're not really being trustworthy.
Right.
Or they haven't shown these consistent patterns, and the things that you're talking about, they're not really doing that. So I can't just blindly trust because I've got to protect myself. I've got to protect myself from being hurt again. So I'm not just going to blindly trust without there being a reason to trust again.
Right. And that's very natural. I mean, that's very natural for you to I don't want to say earn it, but you have to see that there's a change. Like, you can't just say, oh, okay, I forgive you, so now I trust you. It's very different. And I think our full trust process probably took close to 2 years to where I remember you saying that you trusted me again. But it was 2 years and it was long, but here's the thing. Every single I knew as those 2 years went along that you were beginning to trust me more and more and more and more and more. And I just kept doing the thing. I kept doing what I knew to do. I kept showing up and not getting impatient with you. Now, I'm not saying I did that perfectly, but there were times that I was like, because I knew my heart and I knew what I was doing to become trustworthy. And so I just wanted to say, no, really, you can trust me. But when you've hurt someone in that way and broken trust, you just have to be patient on them beginning to trust you again.
Well, another thing that you never did was you didn't get defensive. And if you did, you weren't doing that to me. And, I don't know how else to say this to somebody that's out there that's broken trust, but you don't have, I'm sorry, maybe you should be the one that should speak this instead of me, but you don't have a right to be defensive.
Right. No, you're right.
And I think that there's a lot of people out there that they'll they'll even write into us or, send us a message and they'll say, yeah, I broke trust or whatever the situation is. And when my spouse tries to talk about it, I get defensive. And I'm like, how? You can't. Like, you can't be defensive.
Right.
And so that was one of the things that you just didn't do that.
Yeah. But I also had somebody in my court reminding me that I couldn't do that because I would go to my mentor and say, I'm just so frustrated because I'm doing all the right things and he just doesn't see it. And she would remind me, like, not ugly, but hey, like, you caused this, your choices got you here, and you're going to have to be patient with him as he begins to trust again. But what I saw was that you were trying. What I saw was there was movement in that area. Because we do have met with people before that their spouse just cannot trust them again. And it's frustrating. Like, I get that. So don't hear us say we don't understand that frustration, because I do, but it's a process. It's not something that just happens overnight.
Well, I think that what we desire and what we want is, when people say, I want it to go back the way it was, I do think that there's people that understand when we teach, you don't want it to go back to the way it was. You want something new,
right?
Because the way you were got you in the position that you were in. But what we're saying there, I think a lot of people are saying is, I want it to go back to the way it was because I trusted you.
Yeah.
And so they want to go back to I wanted to go back to where we were because I trusted you. And like that, the trust ended in a moment.
Right.
And so I wanted it to return in a moment.
And it just doesn't work that way.
And it doesn't work that way. And I wish that somebody could have told me somewhere along the way that you don't look for trust to just one day return. And maybe the goal is, maybe, yes, do I have full trust in you now? 100%. But if somebody would have said, you know what, in 2 years from now, you're probably still not going to trust her 100%. If I wasn't looking for that end goal and instead I was looking at, kind of like what you said, I was making steps and making progress and there was movement along the way. And if instead I was just looking for those small things like, oh, hey, that's trustworthy. Like, she's proving herself to be trustworthy, so I can trust her a little more now.
Right.
That doesn't mean that I'm all in and I'm back to where we were. I trust you just like I did on the day we got married. It wasn't that. It was just, I can take this small step because because I see that. I see that she's becoming trustworthy.
Yeah.
But I don't think that people look at it. They just they need a finish line.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there doesn't need to be a finish line. Maybe it's just that one day you go, "Oh my goodness.
I trust them.
I really do trust them." And it's not because, oh, I just all of a sudden one day woke up. It's because consistently over time there was patterns and over and over and over proving yourself to be trustworthy, not perfection, but just consistent.
Right.
And then it's like, yeah, you just kind of go, wow, I do trust you as much or more than I did before this ever happened.
Yeah. Do you think you trust me more now than you did before this ever happened?
Yeah.
Really? I've never heard you say that before.
Yeah, I do, because I think before there was probably, well, I say that. I will say that early on in our marriage, I didn't have any reason to not trust you.
Right.
But I think that as you move through marriage, there's enough things that happen that are painful. And I mean, we've been talking all day, it seems like, about communication.
Right.
And yeah, like I couldn't trust you with my feelings, when
That's fair.
For communication purposes.
Right.
And so because of that, then that all developed over time. I mean, when we first got married, it was like, yeah, we can trust each other. I mean, sure, there's some things that don't work perfectly as every marriage is, but over time I realized more and more I can't trust you with my feelings because you didn't handle those things well. And so I guess over time I became less and less trusting of you with all of me.
Right.
And then after this happened, it was a reset and we had to make a new marriage basically. And I had to learn you had to become trustworthy. And in that you became trustworthy in everything, if that makes sense. I do think that there's people though that still have that question of, well, my spouse is not doing, like, I do think people look at us sometimes and they go, well, this isn't fair because, my spouse isn't doing what Heather's doing, or even my spouse is not doing what Rusty's doing, because there's plenty of people out there that are saying he or she's just not even willing. Like, that's a big hang up for a lot of people.
Like willing to do the hard work and become trustworthy again? Is that what you're talking about?
No, for the other spouse, like me not even being willing
to trust again. Yeah, I got you. I got you.
This wall is so big, it's never coming down. But you have to be willing to let that wall come down. And if your spouse is becoming trustworthy, then you should begin to trust again. And we've already said it takes time, but there are those cases where people go, I don't know what else to do because they're not becoming trustworthy. Well, nobody's telling you to trust them.
Sure.
If they're not trustworthy, don't trust them.
Right.
I mean, and so where do you go then?
Yeah.
And I think then it becomes this, at some point I had to say, okay, I'm willing to stay in this marriage and I'm willing to allow myself the opportunity to trust you again if you become trustworthy.
Right.
Well, as I was waiting, I wasn't trusting you, I was trusting God. And I was having to trust God in you and trust you and trust God with you.
Right.
And so, I could still, and even then, I do think that that's kind of working that trust muscle, so to speak, is that I'm putting my trust in God because God is trustworthy every time. And even though you may feel like God wasn't here, God let me down, God abandoned me, God allowed this to happen, I shouldn't have been hurt like this, whatever your thoughts may be, God is good all the time. And I know sometimes it doesn't feel that way, but he can be trusted every time with everything. And so if that's the case, Sometimes it takes us stepping out there in faith to trust. But as we're doing that, we're learning to trust again. And it gives us an opportunity to lean into trusting our spouse again.
Right.
And so it's kind of flexing that trust muscle, so to speak.
Ish.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Kind of,
Yeah.
sort of. So, yeah, I think that, there's some things that we have to consider. And like I said, if your spouse is not being trustworthy, then don't trust them. And so you're just basically saying, God, I trust you, and I do believe that you can do a work in them, and that will allow me in turn to begin to trust them. But until that time, I'm just going to trust you. And so, yeah, those are some of the things that I think people are staying awake at 2:00 in the morning thinking about. What else you got? You're just kind of staring at me in this sleep deprived state over there.
No, I honestly, when I hear you talking about trust, it's one of those things that I'm amazed every time. I mean, here we are 14 years later, and I know that you trust me, like without a doubt, I know that. But when I look back at the process of how it happened, like I just know that it's a miracle. Because our flesh, when we get hurt, wants to be really, really, really cautious and defensive against being hurt again. I mean, it's the thing we talk about with the wall. When you've been hurt, you build a wall around your heart, and no matter what the other spouse is doing, it's your decision to take that wall down. The spouse can try knocking it down and be like saying, trust me again, and kind of trying to force themselves. Your spouse can lay down at the wall and beg, like, please trust me, and take the wall down. Or they can just say, you know what, you're never going to trust me again. And they just, run. And none of those work. Like the thing that works is that the person starts to prove that they are trustworthy. And the fact that you took down that wall, even though it was slow, I mean, it has to be out of protection for yourself. And so you would take down that wall. And the fact that you did still is just a miracle to me, because the enemy would want nothing less than you to never trust me again. And I believe with everything in me that the enemy was constantly in your ear. You can't trust her. She said that last time. What makes you think she's going to be different this time? Once a cheater, always a cheater.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that the enemy can say, because he didn't want you to trust me again. Because, I mean, that's what things are built on. Like this marriage, we have to have trust. And so he didn't want that. And so I just look at it, and I mean, you're right. I've just been sitting here looking at you, because it's like, how did you get to the place where you completely trusted me again? I knew from the time I was broken that I was going to be trustworthy. Now, is that, I can do this in my strength? No, it's a constant dependence on the Lord. But in that dependence of him, I can only control myself, and I can only control my actions. And so even though I felt like I was becoming trustworthy, it's still such a miracle to me that you were like, okay, I trust you. And you allowed us to have an amazing marriage, and not one that was constantly full of questions.
I think that one thing I started leaning into at some point was that I recognized that we were a team and partners on the journey.
Yeah.
Because I think that early on, I was more of almost like a policeman or an investigator. Sure. And I was trying to investigate how it happened, what you did. I was watching your every move as an investigator. Policing everything that you were doing, with the rules and the boundaries and things that were very necessary. But over time, I came to realize that it was it was about us being a team and being partners in this journey. And so I kind of removed myself from the investigator role.
Right.
And started just leaning into, okay, but so much of that was because of who you were becoming.
Sure.
And I liked who you were becoming. And it's that whole
the
wall,
Mm-hmm.
the wall thing. It was, looking over on your side of the wall and seeing who you were becoming and what you were building on your side of the wall.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's what I want to be. That's what I've always dreamed of my wife being. And so I would gradually take down the wall as I was looking over and seeing who you were becoming. And so, that's the part I think that you can listen to us talk and you can go, yeah, I mean, what a perfect example of rebuilding trust is that one spouse is doing everything that they can to become trustworthy.
Yeah.
The other spouse is open and willing to trust again and gradually removing themselves from just being the, keeper of the rules and investigating and the police and all of that stuff. And they're joining alongside. So, that's I guess perfect storm, however you want to say it. But there's so many people that say, I am being trustworthy, but they won't let it go.
Yeah.
And then there's this person that says, no, I want to trust them again, but they're not doing anything that's worth me trusting. And so that's where the conflict is. But where we're saying at 2:00 in the morning and you're laying there and you're going, can I ever trust again? Well, the answer to that question is yes, you can. Does it take work? Yes, it takes work on both. Both. And one can't do it really without the other. You both have to be giving your part of it. And, you're not always at the same pace. So just remember that too. You may be willing and ready to trust again, and your spouse is not doing the things that are trustworthy. Right. Well, that's when you trust God, and you leave it in God's hands, and you pray a lot.
Right.
And in the same way, you may be as trustworthy and doing everything exactly the way that you can do it, but your spouse is not willing to lean in and believe you and see what you're doing. They're so clouded and just so focused on the pain and the hurt, and they're not willing to see the new creation that you're becoming. And so again, you can't fix that.
Nope. And you just have to pray that God will allow them to trust you again, because that has to be a miserable existence to know that you're doing everything you can and everything that, to do and that you've read to do and that you've heard to do to become trustworthy again, and the person just won't allow it. And you just have to pray like crazy for them, that God would reveal to them that you are trustworthy and that they're not in charge of you, like they're not, what's the word? Like they're not responsible for you. And so it's like, well, they're doing the hard work, so open my eyes to see it.
Well, and I also like to tell people that you become trustworthy because that's who you're supposed to be anyway.
Right.
You're not doing it
for your spouse.
That's right. So that they will trust you again. Right. You're not trying to prove I made a mistake, I messed up, and I want you to trust me again. You're just becoming trustworthy because that's who you're supposed to be anyway.
It's who God has called us to be.
And so you're becoming the husband or the wife, the mother or the father that God's called you to be. And a byproduct of that is, well, I hope my spouse sees it and they fall in love with this person.
Right.
Because that's who you're supposed to be anyway. So you don't necessarily have to be doing it for them. You're doing it because that's who you're supposed to be.
That's right.
You're obeying God. Good. You're following God. You're being who you're supposed to be in Him.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Guys, you do the hard work. You can trust again, and you can become trustworthy again.
Yep, for sure. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
Peace.